Next up, I'm delighted to be joined by Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, who's down the line from, I gather, a chilly central London. Good morning, Shadow Home Secretary.
Good morning, Trevor. Yes, it is a bit chilly here.
OK, well, we're closer to California, so we're quite warm. I talked to Grant Shapps this morning about the fact that the senior counter-terrorism police officer warned yesterday that the election period could see a heightened threat of terrorism here. What would a Labour Home Secretary do to reduce that risk?
Well, you're right, there are growing concerns about the complexity of the national security threats across the UK and the immensely important work that our police and security agencies are doing in order to respond. Because not only do we have the terrorism threats, not only do we have the rise in hateful extremism that we've seen, we also have threats and challenges from states, from other states as well. That includes organisations like the IRGC, the Iranian organisation. It includes online disruption from countries like Russia. So what Labour has set out is this is an area where we would expect to work cross-party, but we do think that stronger action is needed in a series of areas, including we would set up an overarching new strategy to deal with the hostile states in the same way that the last Labour government drew up the contest strategy, which has been the cross-government strategy to tackle terrorism. We need a new similar parallel strategy to tackle hostile state threats, including from countries like Russia. And we've also called for the prescribing of the IRGC as well.
What about our friends? I talked to Mr. Shapps about the comments by Mr. Netanyahu on the that he doesn't want to have a Palestinian state. And Mr. Shapps said he was disappointed by that. Now, you're in opposition. You don't have to be diplomatic. Is there a point at which Labour will say that the price of your continuing backing for the government's pro-Israel policy is that Netanyahu either changes his rhetoric or gets gone?
Well, you will have heard David Lammy, Labour's Foreign Secretary, talk yesterday about this, and he was very clear that those words from Netanyahu were just completely unacceptable. In David's words, this was morally and practically wrong. A statehood of a people is not in the gift of its neighbour. It is the right of a people, and it is the right of the Palestinian people. And that's why we've said it's so important for us to recognise Palestine and also to work towards a two-state solution. And we would urge the Israeli government to work towards that two-state solution as, in the end, the only way of having a sustainable peace in the Middle East after the terrible conflict and the ongoing problems that we are seeing.
All right, let's talk about something which I know sometimes makes Labour spokespeople a little uncomfortable, and that's money. I put it to Grant Shapps that the former head of the Army, Lord Dannett, has called for the UK to spend at least 3% of GDP on defence. Now, Admiral Lord West, who served alongside you in the last Labour administration, as a security minister in the Home Office, has said the same thing. So is Labour going to commit to 3% of GDP at least on defence?
Well, obviously, decisions for what future spending would be, if Labour wins the election, would be for a Labour Chancellor, and would be in opposition is for Labour's Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. But we have been clear about the importance of our national security. National security is the bedrock on which everything else in the country and everybody's well-being is built. And so, of course, that includes supporting our armed forces and making sure that they have the investment and the support that they need.
Well, this is interesting. Let's disentangle that. You say that this is the bedrock on which everything else is built. Let me put this to you. To get to 3%, you need to spend whatever it is, another 20 billion or thereabout. You've already made pledges on, let us say, for example, home insulation. You're going to spend £6 billion on that. You're going to spend £8 billion on building battery factories. You're going to spend £111 million on teaching children to brush their teeth. Why is it not possible for Labour to say it will spend on what you call the bedrock, the first thing, the top priority for a government, which is defending our people?
Well, as you'll know, we've been very clear about the importance of setting out how we will fund everything that we make a commitment for, how we will pay for everything. It's really important that people have value for money, that taxpayers have value for money. But my point is, you've made commitments on other things.
This thing that you say is the most important is the one thing you haven't made a commitment about.
Let me give you an example of something where we are committed to increasing security and safety on our streets as a Home Affairs area.
Can we just deal with
put 13,000. No, it is important.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wonder if you could deal with the question I asked you, which is why won't you commit to 3% on defence?
So, Trevor, let's be clear, the issues around defence spending will be a matter for Rachel Reeves and for John Healey. What I can tell you about is around Home Affairs spending, which is also a part of our national security, where we would increase the number of neighbourhood police and PCSOs on our streets. We would have 13,000 more police on our streets, and we've set out how we would pay for it based on the work of the Police Foundation and the additional savings that we would make by bringing in a new programme of national procurement around policing across the 43 police forces. So there are practical things that Labour can take, practical decisions Labour can take, and things that we can do to make our streets safe. It's just wrong that we've lost so many neighbourhood policing patrols from our town centres, where we've seen increasing criminal damage, increasing antisocial behaviour, and the epidemic of shoplifting. And that's why Keir Starmer later this week will be setting out new proposals around our crime mission to tackle the huge increase in knife crime, but also to keep our communities safe.
All right, we will look out for that. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to ask you about one other thing, which is, I think, important to the Labour Party. Tata Steel has announced that there would be 2,500 job losses at Talbot. Steelmaking is, in a sense, part of Labour's heritage, isn't it? Now, Unite's General Secretary, Sharon Graham, responded to this on Friday, and she said that Unite is ready to use everything in its armoury to defend steelworkers. Tata should be expanding UK steel production in line with growing demand, not slashing its workforce. And here's the important thing, she said. We have secured funding from a future Labour government that could do that. Is that true? She's got a promise.
Well, Labour has set out a programme for green steel, for working as part of the Green Prosperity Fund that we have set out, the importance of how we support green manufacturing, how we support the jobs of the future, and also cut our energy bills, and also make sure that we address the serious challenge from climate change. And as part of that, that is a major programme. There is a major programme in order to have effectively a green steel programme, how you cut carbon emissions and keep steel manufacturing going in this country. So yes, we have set out a programme.
Have you committed, as Sharon Graham says, to spending the money to save the 2,500 jobs at Talbot?
What Labour's done is set out a programme, and this was some time ago, set out a programme for green steel. We've been warning about this for a long time.
But Talbot is what I'm asking you about. Sharon Graham has said in terms that she's got a promise. Is that true?
We have set out a major programme of green steel programme which does involve substantial investment and does involve working with the steel industry. We're calling on Tata to work with the government and the government to follow our proposals in order to be able to set out this programme that would be a way of saving jobs. It's really important to save jobs. I know, but I'm trying to answer your question, Trevor, and you're trying to interrupt me.
No, but I've asked you a very specific question, which is the question you're not answering,
and I have
from a leading Labour figure. And it's perfectly reasonable for you to say, I don't know, or no, she's not telling the truth. I mean, what is the answer to that? Is she right or not?
But Trevor, I've answered the question repeatedly. Labour has set out a major programme of steel investment that would be about delivering a green steel programme. And that is why we expect the steel industry, be it Tata and other parts of the steel industry, to work with the government and to follow Labour's plan in order to do this, to accept the investment that we are proposing around green steel, because this is a way of securing the future for our steel industry. The British steel industry is immensely important. We need to be working to save these jobs, not to end up with people losing jobs in an industry that we ought to be supporting, that we ought to be working with. So yes, Labour has said we would work with the steel industry in order to save jobs and in order to make sure that it has a proper viable future and is also cutting carbon emissions as well. Because this is an example of how we should be growing the economy in an environmentally sustainable way, rather than just standing back in the way the government has done, and rather than just turning our backs on important jobs.
OK, Yvette Cooper, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.